The frigid gusts from the North Sea cut through even the densest woolen cloaks, carrying the scent of salt and imminent demise. In a world where the sun disappeared for prolonged periods, the ability to preserve food was not merely a convenience, but the sole demarcation between existence and oblivion for an entire community. I remember. When snow blanketed the pastures and bovines ceased their milk production, the Norsemen unveiled their covert larders, crafted with engineering exactitude and profound ecological insight. This wasn't merely about sustenance. It was a fierce contest against decay, where the instruments weren't swords and axes, but microbes, salinity, and frigid earth. Continue watching to discover how ancient Scandinavians transformed ephemeral milk into a valuable resource that endured for years without any refrigeration. A bountiful harvest. Eat heartily. We are grateful, husband. It appears magnificent. What if I told you that notions about savage barbarians were mistaken, and their primary strength lay not in pillaging, but in their adept management of milk? Many envision Vikings solely as ruthless maritime raiders, yet this is merely a sliver of their rich culture. In truth, life in the northern climes demanded more sagacity than brutality, and it was milk that formed the bedrock of their daily fortitude. The Northerners grasped that their future hinged not just on their weapons, but on the bovine, which provided a crucial resource. This profound bond between humans and animals meant dairy products became existential before winter's tempestuous arrival. For Scandinavia's inhabitants, the cow wasn't mere livestock, but a vibrant engine guaranteeing the survival of the entire kinship during the year's darkest months. It yielded energy that could be hoarded, processed, and deployed when frost and silence enveloped the world. Ensure a thick application. The Vikings held their cattle in reverence, recognizing them as their bulwark against starvation. In a harsh climate where harvests fluctuated, milk and its derivatives sustained the community's rhythm of life. During winter, the clan relied on summer's milking output as much as on their own valor in battle. You will endure the winter. Where the terrain was rocky and yields were scarce, livestock constituted the economic core. Fields couldn't nourish everyone, but the grasslands blanketing the hills offered a prospect for a stable food source. Consequently, almost every family kept several cows, regarding them as their most prized possessions. These animals were likened to valuable capital that generated daily returns. This enabled the Vikings to weather not only typical cold spells, but also exceptionally harsh years when provisions became critically scant. Their survival directly correlated with their mastery of dairy farming. In summer, when pastures thrived, milk was abundant, so plentiful that consuming it fresh daily was physically impractical. This was a period of arduous labor, with women toiling from dawn till dusk, converting a perishable commodity into long-lasting provisions. They understood that the summer surplus wasn't a blessing, but a challenge requiring expertise and swift decisions. The Vikings had long recognized that milk couldn't be neglected for a moment. It needed to pass through the hands of the mistress with utmost speed. Yet this resource was capricious, prone to spoilage within hours, especially in warmer temperatures. Therefore, experienced women could gauge the remaining time solely by scent. They worked rapidly and confidently, preventing mishaps from jeopardizing future stores. Every homemaker knew that an oversight in such work could determine her family's survival through winter. This relentless struggle against nature transformed into a ritual repeated daily. Ancient artisans understood that fresh milk was merely a raw material demanding immediate and intricate processing for prolonged storage. They perceived it as a living substance whose molecular structure shifted hourly. Women knew precisely what to do to ensure this product retained its value. Their knowledge stemmed from centuries of observation and experimentation. Thanks to these practices, even the hottest day posed no threat to the impending winter diet. They regarded this product as liquid energy, which had to be safeguarded at all costs, to be unleashed in winter when the world transformed into an icy wasteland. This energy became a source of sustenance for the aged, children, and warriors. It nourished the body, warmed it, and allowed for strength conservation when the sun barely kissed the horizon. Milk, transformed into enduring products, became an inner beacon guiding people through the bleakest periods. Its worth was immense, replacing entire baskets of fresh produce. Every liter acquired from a cow was promptly put to use, where no delay or error was permissible. Homemakers clanked their containers with the same assuredness as warriors brandished their swords. They commenced their duties without hesitation, for each minute held significance. Concurrently, the women maintained their composure, understanding that only patience and precision would yield the desired outcome. Their work was unseen, yet everyone knew that without it, starvation would be the constant companion of northern families. The women who managed the household possessed knowledge passed down through generations, valued more than gold, jewels, or weaponry. This wisdom was a genuine treasure, impervious to purchase or forcible acquisition. Rub the salt deeply into the flesh. Girls learned the intricacies of dairy work from early childhood, observing their mothers and grandmothers. They assimilated the experience as naturally as breathing. As they matured, each woman became a guardian of knowledge that determined the family's destiny. They knew how to arrest time for this product by harnessing the unseen forces of nature we now term fermentation. They instinctively sensed when milk required more warmth, or conversely, when the vessel needed placement in the shade. They controlled this process without thermometers or stopwatches, relying solely on their hands and intuition. It was a knowledge that defied verbal description but could be felt. This very understanding transformed a delicate product into a robust food source. They deciphered aromas, temperature, and viscosity, determining the next step with a single glance. These women possessed a sensitivity that blended experience, observation, and innate intuition. They could foresee the outcome even before the process truly began. Such proficiency granted them a unique power, respected by all clan members. In their hands, milk became a formidable cornerstone for the entire community. It was the craft of transmuting an unstable liquid into a stable commodity that could withstand any frost and form the basis of the diet. It was thanks to this artistry that winter ceased to be a death sentence. People knew that reserves crafted by women's hands awaited them, and this instilled confidence. Dairy products became a guarantee that spring would undoubtedly be survived. This skill was as vital as metalworking or maritime navigation. Without these capabilities, winter would have spelled doom for entire families, and the further north the dwelling lay, the more dependent people were on dairy craftsmanship. Where grains failed to grow and fierce winds dispelled warmth from homes, dairy products became the last source of sustenance. Without them, survival was impossible. Hence, respect for the masters of this craft was absolute. In their hands, milk was separated into components, each serving a unique purpose within the intricate system of the winter diet. This process resembled alchemy, where several food types emerged from a single liquid. Women knew that every part of the milk had to be utilized to its fullest potential. They separated the product with such diligence as if arranging precious gems in boxes. Consequently, each substance acquired its distinct role. The rich cream formed the foundation for butter, which provided bodily warmth and was as esteemed as meat. Butter helped people endure cold nights when the hearth fire dwindled. It was used in cooking as fuel and stored as a strategic reserve. Butter was considered a dietary stabilizer, capable of fortifying the body during the most arduous periods. That is why women devoted such meticulous attention to it. The whey was consumed as a beverage to quench thirst and boost the immune system, and the skimmed portion was transformed into cheese, curds, and thick fermented milk products. These provisions nourished people when fresh milk was no longer available. They supplied energy, invigorated health, and sustained the body through the long, frigid months. The Vikings exploited every component, as if working with precious metal. This system ensured their diet was balanced and well considered. Not a single drop was spilled on the ground or floor, as such wastefulness could cost someone their life in spring when supplies dwindled. People thoroughly understood that food was life, and they could not afford carelessness. Even small remnants could become the basis for new product. This method cultivated self-control and strong work ethics, instilled in children from their earliest years. It was a zero-waste system perfected amidst severe resource scarcity, where each decision could influence a family's destiny. This strategy enabled Northerners to survive where other populations would not have lasted a single winter. They possessed the foresight to transform adversity into advantage, which is why their culture left such an indelible mark on history. Are you prepared to uncover the truth about a commodity marketed today as a trendy superfood, but was, for the Vikings, a matter of survival? Skade represented the primary Scandinavian response to the era's obstacles, a distinctive fermented milk product that remained preserved for months. It was neither yogurt nor the cottage cheese we recognize, but an intermediary item with remarkable density and nutritional value. Its production resembled alchemy, where a spoonful of aged skyr, saved from the previous year, was added to fresh, skimmed milk. This starter contained ancient bacterial cultures, meticulously safeguarded by each family as their most prized possession. The milk was warmed to body temperature, blended with the starter, and left undisturbed, allowing fermentation's magic to unfold. The curd solidified, developing a tangy flavor, the era's most effective natural preservative. This was followed by an extensive process of filtration through coarse woolen cloth to eliminate excess moisture. The outcome was a product so dense it could be sliced with a knife and wrapped in fabric. Skyr was stored in vast wooden vats where it gradually matured, only enhancing its benefits and safety. The acidic environment, generated by lactic acid, eliminated any pathogenic bacteria that could lead to illness. Vikings consumed skyr chilled, mixed with grain, or diluted with water to create a nourishing beverage for their journeys. Barrels of skyr in storerooms emanated a distinct sour aroma, signifying sustenance and security for the northern inhabitants. This commodity was so vital that it appears in ancient sagas as the sustenance of heroes and deities. It furnished warriors with the strength needed to propel their long ships for days without respite. The protein in skyr was readily digestible and provided prolonged satiety, crucial when meals were infrequent. During winter, when fresh food was scarce, frozen skyr was cleaved with an axe, portions being cut for daily consumption. It served as a strategic reserve that never failed, retaining its properties until spring. The secret lay in the Vikings' method of controlled souring, preventing spoilage. Yet skyr also yielded another byproduct, valued as highly as the dense mass itself. The production process generated a substantial quantity of sour whey, which was never discarded. This translucent liquid possessed properties we now associate with potent chemical preservatives. In the subsequent segment, you will discover how the Vikings utilized this liquid to preserve meat without a single grain of salt. Can you guess how long it took to perfect this preservative? A byproduct esteemed as precious as gold? This discovery was not accidental. It stemmed from prolonged observations of dairy products' behavior across seasons. Northerners observed that after separating skyr, a liquid remained that did not spoil as rapidly as regular milk. Gradually, they began to experiment with its properties, assessing its effects on various goods. Thus, the advent of this preservative marked a minor revolution in Viking agriculture. The whey, or misa, produced after making skyr was an absolute lifesaver for northern farming. It was generated in immense quantities, especially in summer when cows yielded more milk. Discarding it would have been wasteful, an unacceptable practice in the harsh northern environment. Consequently, homemakers meticulously explored all potential applications. It became evident that mayas possessed valuable qualities that could be leveraged year-round. The Vikings found that this murky, acidic liquid could halt the decay process in other items. It decelerated bacterial proliferation and effectively arrested natural spoilage. This revelation was crucial for extending the shelf life of meat and fish, enabling them to amass substantial provisions without fear of deterioration. This effect seemed almost miraculous to people of that era. Instead of discarding it, they decanted the whey into voluminous oak barrels, establishing reserves of this processing liquid. The wood's tannins further amplified the acid's effect and protected the contents. These barrels were maintained in farm structures and refilled after each skyer batch was prepared, thereby accumulating a liquid reserve used throughout the winter. These reserves were considered as vital a resource as grain or meat. Sections of meat, fish, and even cured sausages requiring winter preservation were submerged in these barrels. Homemakers painstakingly layered the products, ensuring the liquid fully enveloped them to prevent air exposure and prolong food preservation. The meat and fish absorbed some acidity, yet remained safe for consumption. This technique became a straightforward but dependable solution for families of all means. The acid in the whey acted as a formidable bacterial barrier, inhibiting their multiplication within the meat fibers. The internal processes of the food slowed significantly, allowing it to be stored for months. Even if the outer layer discolored, the meat remained firm and safe within. People quickly appreciated the convenience of this storage method, which offered them a means to survive the long winter months without hunger. Foods cured in such a bath acquired a distinctive flavor, but remained palatable and safe for many months. This taste was familiar to Northerners who valued food that did not spoil. Warriors carried such provisions on campaigns, confident in a consistent caloric supply. Despite its peculiar aroma, this food aided their survival, providing strength when any other product would have long since perished. It was an economical and accessible preservation method that obviated the need for costly salt, which had to be procured from traders. Salt was expensive, and only affluent families could afford it in large quantities. Whey mitigated this issue by substituting imported goods with local resources, fostering greater community independence from external supplies, a critical factor for northern survival. Whey was also painstakingly boiled for hours over low heat until it transformed into a brown, viscous mass. Only a small portion of the original volume remained, saturated with milk sugar. This demanded considerable time and attention, requiring constant monitoring of the fire and regular stirring of the simmering liquid. By the end of the boiling process, the mass became thick, almost syrupy. It was cooled and shaped into dense pieces. This concentrate, known today as brown cheese, was incredibly calorie-dense and virtually imperishable. Its flavor was unexpected, sweet, rich, and entirely distinct from familiar milk products. For Northerners, it became a true delicacy that averted starvation. They carried it on expeditions and ships as long-term sustenance, a reliable energy source available in any weather. Iron cauldrons simmered for days, evaporating water and leaving only the essence of milk, milk sugar, and minerals. These processes occurred on every farm with cows. People understood that the longer the whey was boiled, the denser the mass would become. Such labor demanded patience, but the outcome was worthwhile. The finished product was stored for years without losing its value. The resultant brown cheese blocks were carried on extensive sea voyages as an indispensable reserve. They occupied minimal space and practically did not spoil. Even a small piece sufficed to satiate hunger during strenuous deck work. Sailors regarded these blocks as their safeguard in the unpredictable ocean, knowing such provisions would never abandon them. Furthermore, whey was an excellent drink that quenched thirst more effectively than plain water. Its acidity and minerals helped sustain strength during arduous physical labor. Diluted whey was light and refreshing, and it didn't spoil rapidly, making it ideal for prolonged journeys. This beverage became an essential component of maritime life. Do you wish to uncover a secret that will transform your life and your perception of food expiration dates? For the Vikings, butter was not merely a spread, but a concentrated energy source, currency, and strategic asset. This is the finest butter in the lift. However, preserving fresh, sweet butter without refrigeration was impossible, it would turn rancid within days. Consequently, the Vikings produced a special long-lasting butter whose preparation resembled a ritual. The cream was churned extensively in heavy wooden butter churns to achieve complete separation of buttermilk and maximum density of the fat lump. The butter was then meticulously washed in ice water multiple times to eliminate residual milk protein, which was the first component to spoil. The pure fat was then combined with a substantial amount of coarse sea salt, transforming the product into a true concentrate. So much salt was incorporated that prior to consumption, such butter often required soaking in water to restore its palatable taste. However, the most astonishing storage technique involved using natural cold storage. Peat bogs. Barrels of oil were interred deep within cold, damp peat soil where oxygen was absent. In this anaerobic setting, coupled with a consistently low temperature, the oil developed a waxy consistency, enabling its preservation for extended periods. Even today, archaeologists unearth such oil caches, which theoretically still possess their original chemical properties after centuries. This particular method, known as earth oil, imparted a distinct pungent flavor to the product, a characteristic that was highly prized. This oil remains solid even during summer, facilitating easy transportation. It could be loaded into ship holds without concern of it degrading into a rancid sludge. It served as the perfect sustenance for a warrior. A small portion could sustain an individual throughout an entire day of travel. The oil was tightly packed into wooden barrels, then sealed with a layer of melted fat or fermented whey. The barrel lids were hermetically sealed to prevent any air from reaching the valuable contents. In this form, these barrels functioned as a type of currency, usable for paying taxes to the king. The number of oil barrels stored in a family's barn indicated their social standing and their likelihood of surviving the winter. This product formed the foundation of winter cooking, enriching meager porridges and soups made from dried fish with essential fats and flavor. The Vikings understood that fat provided warmth, insulating the body from within during the harshest winters. The depletion of oil reserves was akin to losing heat in one's home, thereby condemning the family to a frigid demise. In the upcoming segment, we will delve into the specific containers used to safeguard these treasures and explore why wood was not the sole material employed. Preserving the product was only one aspect. Creating the ideal container to protect it from external elements was equally crucial. The Vikings were extraordinary woodworkers, and their cooperative craftsmanship achieved remarkable levels in the construction of airtight vessels. Oak barrels, secured with flexible rods or iron hoops, represented the zenith of engineering for their time. Each plank was so meticulously fitted to the next that even air could not permeate the joints. Nevertheless, wood tended to absorb odors and moisture. Consequently, a different material was utilized for exceptionally valuable items. In areas abundant with soapstone, steatite, artisans meticulously carved substantial bowls and vessels from this soft rock. Steatite possessed unique thermal insulation capabilities and did not chemically react with the acidity found in skyr or whey. Milk stored in such stone vessels stayed cool longer, even on sweltering summer days. Stone vessels, being heavy and durable, were passed down through generations, often as part of a daughter's dowry. Their porous yet dense structure made them ideal for storing oil, preventing it from becoming rancid due to contact with the container wall. Lids for these vessels were fashioned from the same stone or from dense wood, ground to achieve a perfect seal. The opening was frequently sealed with wax or fat to ensure absolute airtightness. For temporary storage and transport, containers made of birch bark were employed due to their antibacterial properties. Birch bark resisted decay and kept milk fresher than fragile and porous clay. These lightweight and robust containers were indispensable in daily life and during journeys. Artisans adorned them with carvings, transforming functional objects into works of art. Leather wineskins were also used, though primarily for alcoholic beverages or pre-prepared drinks. Each material was chosen for a specific purpose, reflecting a profound understanding of its physical characteristics. The Vikings did not attempt to defy the inherent nature of materials, but rather capitalized on their strengths. This pragmatic approach ensured that an object's aesthetic appeal was inextricably linked to its utility. In the shadowy corners of the longhouse, rows of these vessels, wooden, stone, and birch bark, stood like silent guardians of prosperity. By discerning the sound of a tap on a barrel, the homemaker could ascertain the remaining stock and whether it would suffice until spring. The integrity of these containers was regularly inspected, as a fissure in stone or a desiccated stave could negate an entire summer's labor. The reliability of the vessel was as crucial as the quality of its contents. Craftsmen skilled in fashioning the finest barrels or carving the smoothest bowls were held in high regard within society. Their artistry served as a safeguard against hunger encroaching upon a home through a mere crack in the timber. Are you prepared for the astonishing revelation of how the Vikings harnessed the earth itself as a refrigeration system, circumventing the need for electricity to chill food? They innately understood that a consistently low temperature was vital for preserving milk supplies. To achieve this, they engineered sophisticated structures known as earth cellars or storage pits. These were not mere indentations in the ground, but meticulously designed constructs featuring drainage and thermal insulation systems. The pits were excavated in dry locations, frequently on hillsides, to ensure proper runoff of rainwater. Their walls were reinforced with stone or wattle to prevent soil collapse. The base was lined with a layer of stones, topped with straw or dry moss for insulation. Barrels of oil, cheese, and skyr were deposited into these pits and securely sealed. The entire structure was then covered with logs, followed by a thick layer of earth and turf, creating a thermos-like effect. Even amidst summer heat, the temperature inside such a storage facility remained consistently low, akin to a modern refrigerator. During winter, the layers of earth and snow shielded the contents from freezing solid, retaining a stable, positive temperature. This allowed the products to maintain their structure and flavor despite significant temperature fluctuations. In certain regions, natural caves or rock crevices, which inherently remained cool, were utilized. The entrances to these caves were sealed with heavy doors, transforming them into communal storage facilities. Only trusted individuals had access to these natural refrigerators, as they housed the strategic reserves of the entire settlement. The judicious selection of a pit location was an art, demanding knowledge of geology and groundwater behavior. Special attention was paid to ventilation. Products required aeration, but not exposure to warm air. The Vikings employed hollow plant stems or wooden pipes to create rudimentary exhaust systems. This prevented the formation of condensation and mold on the cellar walls and barrels. This system functioned flawlessly for centuries, relying solely on the principles of physics. The unsealing of an earth cellar in spring was a momentous occasion, symbolizing the conclusion of the lean season. The earthy aroma mingled with the scent of aged cheese and butter, the very smell of life. People descended into the cool twilight to retrieve the treasures amassed during the previous summer. These subterranean chambers were the epicenter of food security for any substantial farmstead. Without them, the accumulation of surpluses and consequently trade and military expeditions would have been impossible. The land that nourished them in summer concurrently preserved their food in winter. In the next chapter, you will discover the Vikings' currency, which was not only edible but, if sufficiently firm, could also serve as a weapon in close combat. Among the Vikings' dairy products, a prominent position was held by a hard cheese known as gamma ost, or old cheese. This was more than just a foodstuff. It was the culmination of generations of observing how milk behaved in the severe northern climate. This cheese facilitated the preservation of nutrients for many months when fresh produce was unavailable. It became a symbol of the northern people's survival and economic sagacity. Its production methods were passed down through generations as an invaluable skill. This long-aged product was made from skimmed milk without the use of rennet. This alternative method was a necessity, as obtaining the right raw materials for traditional milk curdling was not always feasible. The Vikings learned to ferment milk naturally, relying on lactic acid bacteria. Subsequent heating aided in separating the curds from the whey. Even at this stage, meticulous care and expertise were required. The milk was fermented, heated, and the resulting curds were vigorously pressed in wooden molds to extract all moisture. The drier the mass, the harder and more enduring the cheese became. Pressing was performed by hand, making the skill of the hostess paramount to the outcome. The wooden molds absorbed excess moisture and imparted the cheese's characteristic faceted shape. This process could extend for many hours. The resulting cheese wheels were dried in the wind until they achieved rock-hard consistency. The Scandinavian climate facilitated this, with its cold, dry air working slowly but effectively. Sometimes the cheeses were arrayed on specialized racks beneath a canopy, ensuring constant airflow. Over time, the surface hardened and the cheese came to resemble a dense mineral. This particular quality rendered it nearly imperishable. Such cheese possessed a coarse, crumbly texture and an intensely sharp, rich flavor and aroma. Those unfamiliar with northern cuisine might even find its taste too potent. However, for the Vikings, this richness signified quality and maturity. They cherished the profound flavor that emerged only after extended months of aging. Cheese was not merely sustenance, but an embodiment of nature's power. It could be stored for years without requiring any special conditions beyond dryness. This was especially crucial in households lacking consistent cold storage or specialized cool rooms. Even during extended travels, the cheese remained edible, preserving its consistency and nutritional richness. It could traverse oceans or be carried in a satchel for weeks, its endurance proving invaluable. Gamalost was the ideal food for voyagers. It was light, compact, and exceptionally nourishing. A small piece sustained one through lengthy journeys. Vikings recognized the importance of food that resisted spoilage and occupied minimal space on the road. Consequently, this cheese became an enduring companion for warriors and merchants alike, accompanying them even on the most perilous voyages. To consume this cheese, it often required cutting with a knife or softening in beer or broth, which rendered it more yielding. Sometimes it was integrated into hot dishes, transforming into a nutrient-dense, porridge-like consistency. This method diversified the diet, even when only aged hard cheese was available, showcasing its versatility and convenience. Cheese wheels were rubbed with salt and, at times, smoked over the hearth to form a protective crust against insects and mold. Salt acted as a vital preservative, inhibiting harmful bacterial growth. Smoking provided an additional layer of defense by coating the surface with a thin film of smoke. This technique was accessible to every home equipped with a hearth, extending the cheese's shelf life. The smoke imparted a distinct aroma and further preserved it. In each settlement, the smoke's character varied with the wood used, leading to regional differences in cheese flavor. This fostered unique local traditions valued by traders. People could discern the cheese's origin merely by its scent, a mark of quality that enhanced its worth. In Viking storerooms, cheeses rested on elevated shelves suspended from the ceiling, where warm, dry air from the hearth circulated over them. This setup shielded the products from rodents and moisture. The shelf height facilitated continuous air movement, ensuring the cheese matured uniformly and attained the desired firmness. This solution was simple yet remarkably effective. In the Viking world, the management of food stores fell within a woman's domain, and the keys to these provisions symbolized her authority. These keys were more than mere household implements. They signified the family's trust in women. They were conspicuously displayed, signaling to all who was responsible for food and order. The mistress of the house felt the weight of these keys not just on her belt, but in her spirit, as they represented her family's well-being. This role was entrusted only to those capable of clear and far-sighted thinking. The lady of the house, the husfreyja, wore a cluster of bronze keys on her belt, an emblem of her undisputed power. The keys jingled with every step, alerting those nearby that she commanded the household's internal riches. They were considered an aspect of her status and could indicate a woman's position within the community. Such a collection of keys was not merely a tool, but a testament to wisdom and experience. A woman possessing keys commanded respect even from the most formidable warriors. Only she knew the remaining quantities of oil and skyr, and only she decided when and to whom to grant access to the stores. This information was a guarded secret, withheld even from family members to prevent waste. She kept a mental inventory of everything men brought back from expeditions or gathered from the fields. This demanded memory, attentiveness, and a profound understanding of seasonal cycles. Any miscalculation could prove costly. Men might procure resources, lead raids, and cultivate the land, but it was the woman who converted their acquisitions into the foundation of survival. She determined what could be consumed immediately and what should be reserved for lean months. In her hands, the harvest transformed into a meticulously planned system of reserves calculated for the long term. Men relied on her ability to allocate food. Without such a hostess, the home could not be deemed stable. Her prudence and capacity to plan the diet 6 months in advance determined the fate of the entire clan. She understood the rate of winter consumption and what could substitute in times of scarcity. This was genuine mental work requiring stringent self-control. She could not afford weakness, as her family's lives depended on her. This shaped the unique inner strength of northern women. Should she err and open barrels prematurely, the family might not survive until spring, a tragedy beyond rectification. Scandinavian winters were unforgiving, and there was no acquiring missing food. Therefore, women approached their decisions with utmost caution. Every action bore consequences. It was an immense responsibility, demanding strict discipline and a mathematical mind. A woman had to anticipate her family's needs, accounting for illness, guests, and unforeseen circumstances. Her wisdom was likened to an experienced warrior's skill, for in both cases the stakes were equally high. She made daily decisions like a commander on the front line. This role solidified her as the heart of the entire household. The pantry was her fortress, impenetrable even to the Jarl without permission. Within, not only food but also tools, herbs, and rare provisions were stored. These items necessitated special care, and the woman tolerated no disorder. Every item had its designated place to prevent any loss. This area was her domain and her power. There, in the cool darkness, she performed her magic of resource management, assessing food quality and sorting. She could discern by smell when a honey barrel began to spoil or when cheese required turning. This knowledge, acquired through experience, was almost intuitive. Viking women perceived it as an intrinsic part of their nature, an intuition that saved families from starvation. She recognized every barrel by sight, remembered when butter was churned and cheese was made. Her memory spanned entire seasons, connecting past events with future needs, making her indispensable in the home. The clan relied on those who knew how to cooperate with nature, not oppose it. Thus, the ability to preserve food was considered the ultimate art of housekeeping. This knowledge was imparted to daughters from an early age, preparing them for their role as life's custodians. Girls observed their mothers, assisting them and learning the art of resource distribution. This education began with simple tasks, gradually evolving into a comprehensive skill. By adulthood, a girl understood the entire system, preserving tradition. Women were also responsible for the cleanliness of vessels and rooms. Recognizing dirt as the enemy of supplies, they meticulously cleaned storerooms, ensuring nothing attracted mold or insects. This task demanded daily vigilance. Cleanliness extended food's shelf life and protected the family from disease, making hygiene a matter of survival. They utilized boiling water, ash, and aromatic herbs like nettles or juniper to disinfect barrels. These natural remedies possessed antiseptic properties, known to women through years of practice. They understood how to combine different methods for maximum results, their knowledge simple yet rooted in observation and experience, making it highly effective. This primitive but potent sanitation prevented epidemics and food spoilage, maintaining family health and ensuring a stable food supply. Women became so adept at these methods that they performed them almost automatically, making it part of their daily routine. Their work was invisible, yet vital to the entire clan. Women's status in Viking society was elevated precisely due to their role in the household economy. Men understood that without her efforts, their spoils would be worthless. She transformed nature's chaos into order and protected the home more effectively than any fence. Her strategic thinking fortified the family. Consequently, respect for the husfreyja was genuine. Respect for the mistress of the keys was boundless, as the full bellies of every warrior depended on her decisions. People understood that she provided support when men embarked on long expeditions. In her hands lay the foundation of security, irreplaceable by weaponry. This connection between the mistress and the warrior forged an especially strong union. All clan members recognized its significance. She was the strategist of the home front, without whom any military campaign would be doomed. Warriors set sail knowing that order and prosperity awaited them at home. This confidence bolstered their fighting spirit and helped them endure the hardships of their campaigns. The woman who managed supplies became their invisible ally, providing stability that could not be understated. In the Viking Age, butter was such a valuable and stable commodity that it served as a measure of value, replacing money. A comprehensive system of weights and measures developed around dairy products. Peasants paid their leases and levies to the monarch in containers of butter, known as lar. This served as a universal medium of exchange, accepted throughout regions spanning from Iceland to Norway. Unlike unreliable coinage, butter retained its worth and consistently possessed inherent consumer value. An individual's prosperity was literally gauged by the amount of fat stored within their granaries. Revenue agents would verify the butter's quality by probing it with specialized tools to confirm the absence of air pockets or rancid layers. Substandard butter could be refused, leading to significant penalties and considerable disgrace. This motivated producers to uphold stringent preservation benchmarks. Butter was employed to settle legal penalties, to shroud the deceased, and as indemnity for captives. It functioned as a liquid commodity, readily traded for iron, textiles, or chattel. The economic stability of entire territories relied on the fabrication and storage of dairy fat. In Iceland, a land unsuitable for grain cultivation, dried fish and butter, along with homespun wool, constituted the primary export commodities. Vessels laden with butter barrels journeyed to Britain and the mainland, returning with cereals and luxury goods. This was an international trade fostered by milk fermentation. The high worth placed on butter meant that pilfering a barrel from a vendor was deemed a grave transgression, punishable by banishment or death. Safeguarding dairy repositories was a crucial responsibility, entrusted to the most skilled warriors and their canine companions. Butter also held significance in religious ceremonies, offered to deities as a symbol of gratitude for abundance. It was applied to divine effigies or ignited in hallowed pyres, dedicating humanity's most cherished asset to celestial powers. As the springtime sun's initial rays began melting the snow and days lengthened, a critical juncture arrived. The provisions laid in during autumn were dwindling, necessitating the opening of the final, most secluded barrels. This period tested the expertise of preservation. Had the flavor been retained, or had bitterness permeated? The palate of last year's butter and cheese was distinct, sharp, fermented, and rich. To contemporary sensibilities, it might appear spoiled, but for the Vikings, it embodied victory over winter. Each morsel of aged cheese consumed confirmed that death had once more receded. The residual whey and skyr were utilized to ferment a new batch, completing the annual cycle of existence. The microorganisms that endured winter imparted their potency to the fresh milk, ensuring cultural continuity. The venerable starter culture bridged bygone eras with future yields. In spring, livestock were once again herded to pastures, initiating a new season of plentiful milk. However, lessons learned from the preceding winter were heeded. If provisions proved inadequate, more storage pits and barrels were prepared for the subsequent year. This was an ongoing process of rectifying errors and enhancing survival techniques. The ability to preserve milk enabled the Vikings to settle in locales considered uninhabitable by other populations. Greenland, Iceland, the Faroe Islands, wherever they ventured, they introduced the tradition of skyr and butter. It was their covert colonization strategy. Today, we open refrigerators without contemplating the marvel behind a winter glass of fresh milk. Yet, a millennium ago, every gulp was the culmination of heroic endeavors, knowledge, and a struggle against nature. The saga of Viking dairy products is an ode to human ingenuity. These methodologies have not vanished entirely. They have evolved into modern Icelandic and Norwegian delicacies, reminding us of our heritage. Skyr, gammelost, dried fish, these are echoes of an era when preservation was an art form. We have observed that the Viking world was sustained not merely by their sword steel, but also by the robustness of oak barrels and the chill of earthen cellars. Their proficiency in preserving milk and butter in wild environments represented a genuine technological achievement of their epoch. It was a quiet, daily struggle for caloric intake, where patience, hygiene, and wisdom triumphed. Without this dependable logistical support, the great discoveries and conquests that reshaped Europe's map would not have materialized. Do you believe modern individuals could subsist using only these ancient food preservation methods? Or are we excessively reliant on technology? Share your thoughts in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to our channel to stay informed about new insights into the life and mysteries of the past.